Hey everybody, and welcome back to the internet once again. I hope you're all ready for a great weekend, unless you're neighbors with this guy. Dear neighbor, you just moved into this neighborhood a year ago, and I wanted to give you time to correct this problem on your own, but you're apparently too inconsiderate to do so. Every day this week, when the weather has been nice and windows are open, you proceed to let your small child run free in your backyard and laugh and giggle and carry on without end. This is very disruptive for my 2 dogs and my bird who sit next to the window, and like to look into your yard. Perhaps you could ask him to tone it down a bit, or at least limit his outside time to 15 to 20 minutes a day so my dogs can be outside without seeing him running around. If this kind of behavior persists, I will call the police. Man, this can't be real. There's no way anyone is this big of a jerk. Alright, let's get into the first story from I Don't Work Here Lady called You Don't Work Here, Dude. This happened a few days ago, and I finally have a bit of time to type it out. I've had I Don't Work Here experiences, but never a You Don't Work Here. I was helping out during a large festival a few towns over from me, basically just filling in where I was needed. Employees came from various places, but we all had on the same neon green staff shirt, so it's easy to find us. A few people approached me asking what they started charging for parking. Weird, because they hadn't, and I knew that because I had just been parking people a few hours beforehand. The group told me a guy in a neon shirt told them it was $5, gave them change and everything, handed them a parking tag, and then directed them to another neon shirt. I grabbed a security guy and we went over to see if we could figure out what was going on. This guy, I don't know if I should be mad or impressed, got a neon green shirt and spray painted staff on the back. From far away, it looked totally legitimate to the point we glanced around and didn't notice him. We approached him originally to ask him if he had seen anyone fishy around. When he looked up, I noticed a small face tattoo. Not that they wouldn't employ someone with a face tattoo, but I probably would have noticed at the staff meeting we had a day before. After that, we noticed his homemade shirt and lack of a radio or badge. So the security guy talked to this fake guy. Says, "Hey bud, you can't just make a shirt and start charging people to park. If you give the money back and trash the shirt, just get out of here and we won't call the cops." "Oh no, John said we ran out of shirts and he had to make this one." Says, "John who?" John, you know, the big guy. He's around here somewhere." Spoiler, there is no John. It's funny he picked that name because we had 4 Johns the year before, and had made a huge joke out of not having to figure out which John was which since we didn't have a single one. We also way over-order staff shirts, so we had like 30 left over. The security says, "I know all the staff, there is no John. There are also plenty of staff shirts. One more time, give the money back and trash the shirt." He says, "Hey man, I don't tell you how to do your job. Why tell me how to do mine?" He says, "This isn't your job, that's why. I tried the easy way, it's on you now." So he calls the cops and we stay by him, making sure he doesn't try to charge anyone else. It made for a few amusing interactions when the fake tried to tell at passing cars to pay, and we immediately yell over him saying there's no charge for parking. So the cops come, and the boss. The boss comes and says, "Who in their right mind is charging to park?" He sees the fake. "You? Who are you?" The cops walk up. "Officers, this man is not in my staff, yet he is charging to park in my free lot." The guy says, "Whoa, hey John, calm down." The boss gives him a weird look, like, "Who's John?" "You can't just call the cops every time we have a disagreement. If you're that mad I didn't order enough shirts, just fire me." All of us at the same time say, "You're not staff." This guy was kind of hilarious. The cops took him aside and he tried hard to convince them he was staff. They asked him various questions like how he applied, how much they paid, when we started or ended, and of course he couldn't answer any of them. Luckily, since he handed out parking tags, which he printed at home and stuck on cardboard, it was very easy to find how many cars he charged and who. About 20 cars in the half an hour or so he was there before we came. Had he just given up when we caught him, he wouldn't have been arrested for... There's a term for stuff like this, something like unauthorized sales. It's basically a fancy way of saying theft, but since they handed it to him under false pretenses, it's called something else. Pretty sure it's just called fraud. So I'm going to try and find his record to check. So this instant they got him for fraud. Before, they had charged him with unauthorized presence. Some term for when you're in jail already and go somewhere you shouldn't be. An intent to sell that got jumbled in my brain. So he had priors. Dude's gonna be locked up for a while. So my boss made an announcement for anyone who paid to park to come to the main entrance. Managed to get everyone their money back. It was pretty fun to be the guy handing back the money, but was awkward to explain about the fake staff member. Next year we're getting more detailed shirts so they're harder to copy, and taking optional donations in the parking lot to give our local soup kitchen. We figured we might as well. Also gives us an excuse to keep someone stationed around where he was taking the money, which was a weird turn that's not super visible from the rest of the festival. I just can't wrap my head around it. Dude put a lot of effort into faking his way into a job that probably would have just hired him. I bet he's in jail now, still saying that John screwed him over. I mean, it is clever, but unless you get in and out of there quick, you're just gonna get caught. This guy probably just scams people for a living, so... Alright, moving on to... This is a story about the time I let my aunt eat butter with a spoon. So my aunt is a strange woman. She's from Washington, and to be honest, everyone I've met from the Pacific Northwest is as batty as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, and she's no exception. She has about 1 million kids and listens to Kenny G in the car, and is kind of an uptight, authoritarian, mommy, mafia lady in that veiled, smiling with too much teeth way that stay-at-home moms get. That is an oddly specific description. When I was 14, my aunt and her mob of unvaccinated goblins came to visit me and my family in the Midwest. Near our house, we have a restaurant called Patty's 1880s Settlement, some weird fever dream of an eccentric couple named Patty and Bill Settlement who spent too much time reading The Little House on the Prairie. At any rate, they pride themselves on their overpriced southern food, with tall plates piled with fixins or side dishes and other culinary accoutrements. Most famous among these was their strawberry whipped butter and flour pot bread, and for whatever reason, Patty and Bill had decided to curse the earth with this disgusting abomination for dinner rolls. It was kept in a chilled tub over ice, and because this being the South, and heart disease being a myth made up by the Yankees, it was served with a freaking ice cream scoop at this fixins bar. As my aunt made her way through the line, I saw her grab a bowl and scoop out a massive, advertisement-ready serving of strawberry whipped butter. Fish and visitors spoil after 3 days, and she'd been with me and my family for almost a week, so we'd already tangled on a few issues already. However, I piped up and told her that she probably shouldn't get such a large bowl. Her expression soured, and she rounded on me. I knew the drill, so I let her tear me a new one about respecting your elders and not talking back or having a smart mouth. Finally, she finished her reaming and slammed the bowl of butter onto her plate and stalked back to the table. Fine then, I vowed then to never backtalk my aunt again, for better or worse. I'm not good at hiding my emotions. At the best of times, I'm caustic, rough-edged, and a bit spiteful, but part of this is probably genetics. I sat down at the table across from this broad-shouldered ogre of a woman, grinning like a baboon as I watched her dig into the butter. She knew something was up instantly at the first spoonful, but seeing my greasy little teenage face across the table must have summoned some ungodly determination in her. I sat there for the next 10 minutes and watched my aunt eat every last bit of that frigging butter with a soup spoon. Some people will go through a lot of suffering just to not be proved wrong. Man, this storyteller certainly has a way with words. Or this one is, paying cash doesn't help your chances, lady. So I work in a cell phone store that closes at 8 p.m. When there is no customer in the store, the door is locked at 8 p.m. on the dot, and displays have been already taken down 5 minutes prior. Money pre-counted and waiting to be saved at closing. So Wednesday, a car pulls into a spot in front of our door at 8:01 p.m. By that time, our displays are down and money has been counted and deposited because no one has been in the store for 4 hours. Closing got done early. All I needed was to lock the door and hit save on the deposit screen. Done and done. Customer pulls on the locked door at 8:04 p.m. after I have set the alarm and scanned my finger to clock out for the night. I yell from the back of the store that we're closed, and she yells back that she just needs to pay her bill. I tell her again that we're closed. She still pulls and yells. Well, now I'm going to show her that we are closed by going out to the door and locking it behind me. As I get to the door, she tries to shove her way in with her daughter. I tell her a third time that we closed at 8 p.m. and that she would have to come back tomorrow. Cue the waterworks, the begging, the pleading. She has to pay her bill. Her phone will get cut off. Just please, it's just a bill pay. Then she utters the words that ultimately shut down the thought of reopening for a bill pay. I'm just paying in cash. Yep, that doesn't help your case. After explaining to her that I was not going to turn off the alarm, clock back in, open a new cash drawer to take her payment, which would result in me having to count and create a new deposit and reclose the drawer, she finally decided that calling me a bunch of names would be the best route to take. Instead of setting an example of no means no for a child, you show her that not getting your way means you throw a tantrum. Great job, Mom. Anyway, I drove off before she did, so hopefully the handful of customers from the bar next door that were watching told her what an awful person she was. I mean, 8 p.m. seems like an odd time to be forcing your way into paying a phone bill, but who knows, these Karens could be busy. Alright, so this one's from EntitledParents. It's a pretty long one called Crazy Entitled Aunt and the Italian Restaurant. So this happened almost 40 years ago. I'm posting it as a thanks for reading the other stories. This one is more funny and entitled rather than infuriating and entitled. So my immediate family was, for the most part, perfectly normal and boring. We were not prone to outbursts and tantrums. It was very calm and quiet. Everyone got along and we were pretty happy with our boredom. I tell you that so you understand that I had absolutely no experience at all with people prone to screaming fits. You should also know that I suffer from a case of terminal morbid curiosity. I also don't give a crap. Never did. Never saw the fun in it. This happened when we were visiting for a great auntie's funeral. I was 12. My crazy aunt insists that we all go out to dinner at her favorite Italian restaurant. It was just the best, she said so, and she was never wrong. The gimmick here was a little flag of Italy on the table. When you wanted more dinner rolls, you raised the flag. This is important. Flags up, you get rolls. Flags down, no rolls. Remember that. The 6 of us are seated. They take our drink order and bring the bread baskets. The cast has a new member, PU, for my poor, long-suffering uncle, who will one day be made a saint for being married to my crazy aunt for over 20 years. Some of you commented in my first post that he was an enabler, but he wasn't. He was a victim as well. He couldn't leave her without leaving Emily. So it started with the drink order. My crazy aunt says, "We will have 5 sweet teas." My dad says he'll have a Coke. My mom says she'll have a Coke. I say a tea with no sugar. This is a mortal sin in the South. My aunt says, "You can't have sweet tea without sugar." I say, "I don't like sugar." She said, "That's stupid. Bring her sweet tea." So the waitress winked at me, says, "Yes, ma'am." So the uncle says, "I think I'd like a Coke as well." And Emily says, "I'd like a Coke." The crazy aunt says, "We drink Pepsi, not Coke. We're having sweet tea." The waitress brought us our requested drinks, and the crazy aunt was growing agitated. So the crazy aunt likes to control everything and everyone, so she has told us what to order for dinner. I'm not going to get into an ethical debate there, but I refuse to eat veal. She demanded we all have the veal. I refused. I knew this would set her off, but oh well. I'm not eating veal. My parents, after I had explained to them years early why I would not eat veal, refused to eat it as well. Did I mention I get my I don't give a crap quality from my parents? Well, they didn't give a crap either. They were perfectly capable of ordering whatever the heck they wanted, so they did. I had lasagna, it was good. My mother's was better. So once we ordered what we had wanted, it emboldened my uncle and he stepped out of line and ordered something else as well. My crazy aunt was not having it. She says, "You are getting the veal." I says, "No, I feel like something else tonight." "The veal is the best." "No, I want something else." "You won't like it." "I'm sure I will." "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know what I like." "Well, you can't have it." "Yes, I can." "I said no." "Well, I'm ordering it." "You always get the veal." He says, "Because it's your favorite and you make me. I don't even like Italian food." "Yes, you do. It's your favorite." He says, "I want the lasagna." "Just order what I tell you to order." He says, "No, lasagna." Emily says, "I'll have the lasagna too." My aunt says, "You can't have that. You're allergic." She says, "No, I'm not." She says, "I'm your mother. I know what you can and can't eat." And then she says, "Bring her the veal." The whole time this is going on, I'm looking from one to the other like watching a tennis match, back and forth, with the pitch of her voice getting more and more shrill with each sentence. I was fairly certain that when we had left, bats would have been summoned. I'm just watching them and eating a dinner roll. So the food arrives and everyone got what they wanted, even Emily, much to the fury of the crazy aunt. Then it appears. My uncle raises the flag, and my aunt puts it down. He puts it back up, she takes it back down, up and down, up and down. I see the bread guy hovering at the edge of the table, waiting. The flag goes up and he rushes in to drop off the new basket before it can go down. My crazy aunt grabs the basket and throws it at the kid that delivered it. To save time in typing, every time she speaks, the flag goes down. The rest of the time, it goes up. She says, "You don't need any more bread." "But I want more." "I said no." "I'm an adult. I can have more bread if I want." "No, you can't." "Why? Just tell me why I can't have more bread." "Because I said so. You weren't listening to me." "I'm hungry and I want more bread." "You wouldn't be if you had ordered the veal." "Yes, I would. I always am, but you never let me have more bread. Tonight I get more." I say, "I want some more bread too." She says, "No, you've had enough." "No, I really think I want more." "Well, you are wrong." I say, "You seem upset." "That's because you people aren't listening to me." I say, "Yes, we are. We just don't care. We want more bread." My dad, trying not to laugh at how absurd this is, "You aren't helping." I say, "I think I want more bread too." At this point, the whole place is watching our table and the battle over the flag. I'm fairly sure there were people taking bets as to who would win. In the middle of the confusion, a nice lady sitting at another table nearest Emily tapped her and slipped their fresh bread and basket to her. Emily took a roll and slipped it to me. I took one and slipped it to my father, and then to my mother, who, after taking a roll for herself, slipped one onto my uncle's plate. My aunt saw it and grabbed for it, but my uncle was faster. He shoved the whole thing in his mouth at once. It was a big roll. The waitress approached the table to check to see if we needed anything. Xanax was unfortunately not on the menu. And my crazy aunt demanded she bring the check. I say, "I want dessert, chocolate cake." The uncle says, "Sounds great, I'll have some." Emily says, "Me too." My dad says, "I'll have apple pie." My mom says, "I'll have cheesecake. Bring cheesecake for crazy aunt, she loves cheesecake." She says, "No, we're not having dessert. We are getting the check and leaving now." My dad says, "No, we aren't." He says, "Well, I'm leaving. You can all walk home." He says, I drove. It's our car. I know. Give me the keys. I said, nope. You have to give me the keys. I live here. You were just visiting. He says, yes, I'm just visiting with my family in our car. But it's my state. He says, I don't care. It's my car and you can't have it. You're a terrible driver anyway. No, I'm not. You drive the wrong way on the freeway. He says, no, I don't. It's the other cars going the wrong way. You get lost in your own neighborhood. He says, not always. He says, you aren't driving my car. Yes, I am. No, you aren't. That, ladies and gentlemen, continued while we ate dessert, paid the check my father was buying, as we walked to the car, and for the entire trip back to their house, my father drove. We dropped them off and went back to our hotel room. My dad says, has your sister always been this crazy? My mom says, no, it only started when she was about 3. He says, what happened? She started speaking in complete sentences. Ah. I'm glad I don't have any family members like that to deal with. I mean, it honestly seems exhausting to be that much of a control freak. Like, why would you care what food everyone else gets? But speaking of funny family members, that leads us into the question of the day, which is, what is something you did long ago that all your parents still bring up today? So again, we get some more childhood cringe stories. Hooray! So a few years ago, I was eating dinner with my mom and brother and started choking on a piece of food. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. I fell out of my chair and writhed on the floor before managing to dislodge the food. The entire time, my mom and brother laughed because they thought I was joking, and then yelled at me for not letting them know I was choking. Almost 4 years later, if I even remotely choked on anything, they reminded me to fall on the floor so that they know I'm being serious. Man, what kind of logic is that? Hey, if you're gonna die, you have to tell us that you're dying so we know you're serious. So when I was 6 or 7, we were visiting Georgia because one of my uncles was dying. It was a really solemn affair, not a lot of fun, and sort of a miserable time for everyone. So little me, a bit bored, and looking for something to get my mind off of things, started chasing the cat around because I loved cats a lot. Like in a little kid way that cats hate, where you just pick them up and bear hug them and squeeze them until they claw you to get away. So I'm chasing this cat, and it runs through its cat tunnel on a cat scratch post palace thing it had. Obviously, I launched myself flat out into this thing after it, and wedged my arms against myself with my elbows, and my hands just stuck right in front of my face. I made it about halfway through the tunnel. I struggled for about 20 minutes by myself to get out, and man, I'm just stuck. So finally, I start crying, and my family heard and came over. I'm all embarrassed because I can't get out, and they're just laughing like crazy. Finally, my oldest brother says, I'll get him out. He grabs me by the ankles, and with all of his might that his 13-year-old self could muster, yanks my jeans clean off. My whitey-tidy bum's just out there for to see. I was mortified, and then they just laughed and laughed. Like several of them fell onto the ground laughing. They did finally rescue me by pulling my hands through, so I wasn't wedged in there. I guess all in all, it helped them get some laughter in a sucky time. It gets brought up from time to time, but really it's fine. Man, these parents sure like making fun of their kids. That's probably gonna be me when I have kids. So I threw a dart into my brother's bare foot because I convinced myself I was good enough to throw it exactly between his toes. Well, I mean, you hit his foot, so it's pretty close at least. When I was 6 or 7, I was outside playing on our swing set. As I was swinging, I was looking at the ground and saw a fruit snack. It was covered in dirt, but I stopped swinging, picked it up, blew the dirt off, and was about to stick it in my mouth when suddenly I hear my mom banging on the dining room window, motioning me to come inside. She told me if I wanted a fruit snack, I just needed to ask, and then she would give me a pack of them. She has told this story to every friend or boyfriend I've ever introduced her to. It's not even that funny or a great story, but it's one of those stories that she thinks will embarrass me. But I was a kid, and I saw a fruit snack. Of course I was going to try and eat it. Hey, I mean, I'm the same way. If I see some uneaten food that looks good, I'll just go ahead and take it. You know, if I see a plate of half-eaten cheesecake at a restaurant of some table that people left over, I'll go and take it. If you haven't heard that story, click the little icon thing and I'll link to that video. Well, that's all the responses I have. I can't really think of anything that my parents bring up about me all the time, but I know my dad watches these videos, so if he happens to watch this, I guess I'll pin his comment. But I'm not going to tell him that this video exists, so he'll have to find it himself. Anyways, that's all for today, so thanks for watching.